Dilip Kumar, Part 8. One morning, I was waiting at the Churchgate station from where I was to take a local train to Dadar to meet somebody who had a business offer to make to me. I had something to do with wooden cots to be supplied to army cantonments. There, I spotted Mr. Masani, a psychologist who had once come to Wilson College, where I had been a student for a year. Dr. Masani had then given a lecture on vocational choices for arts students. At Churchgate, I went up to him and introduced myself. He knew me well since he was one of Agaji's acquaintances. What are you doing here, Yusuf? He asked me. I told him I was in search of a job, but since there was none in sight, I was trying to do some business. He said he was going to Malad to meet the owners of Bombay Talkies, a movie studio, and it would not be a bad idea if I went with him and met them. They may have a job for you, he mentioned casually. I pondered for an instant and then I joined him, giving up the idea of going to Dadar. I had a railway first class season ticket only up to Bandra. Malad is about 18 kilometers beyond Bandra. Dr. Masani knew the ticket checker who gave me an extension cheat up to Malad. Though Bombay Talkies was not very far from the Malad station, he nevertheless took a cab to the studio since it was almost lunchtime and he was afraid that Mrs. Devika Rani, the boss of Bombay Talkies, may go home for lunch. I had never ever seen a film studio in my life, not even in photographs. I had heard of Bombay Talkies from Raj Kapoor, who spoke about it as the studio where films starring his father Prithviraj Kapoor were shot. Bombay Talkies was a complete surprise. It was spread over several acres and there was a garden with a fountain in it. The office building looked more like a lovely bungalow and less like a typical office structure. When Dr. Masani entered, there was warm recognition from Devika Rani, who offered him a seat and looked at me wonderingly while I waited to be introduced. She was a picture of elegance, and when Dr. Masani introduced me, she greeted me with a namaste and asked me to pull up a chair and be seated, her gaze fixed on me as if she had a thought running in her mind about me. She introduced us to Amiya Chakraborty, a famous director, as I later came to know, who was seated on a sofa. She asked me if I had sufficient knowledge of Urdu. I replied in the affirmative, and Dr. Masani intervened to give her my background, going back to my antecedents in Peshawar, and told her about Agaji and the business we were in. She listened with interest, and I observed her face, which had a natural glow and the flush of good health. I wondered what sort of job she was going to give me since she was so keen to know about my proficiency in the Urdu language. She turned to me and, with a beautiful smile, asked me the question that was to change the course of my life completely and unexpectedly. She asked me whether I would become an actor and accept employment by the studio for a monthly salary of rupees 1250. For a moment, I did not know what to say. I looked at Dr. Masani, who was equally surprised but was not showing it. He merely shrugged, and I knew it was a silent hint for me to take a call and give her a reply. I was never one to lose time in futile thinking, so I returned her charming smile and told her that it was indeed kind of her to consider me for the job of an actor, but I had no experience and knew nothing about the art. What is more, I had seen only one film, which was a war documentary screened for the army personnel in Deolali. She was quick with her reasoning. She asked, how experienced are you in the fruit trade of your family? I told her that as I was learning, I could not claim much experience. She then said, there you are. If you can take pains to learn about fruits and fruit cultivation, you can surely take pains to learn the craft of filmmaking and acting. Indeed, I need a young, good looking, educated actor, and I can see that you possess the qualifications to become a good actor. It was soon lunchtime, and she asked us graciously if we would care to join her. Dr. Masani declined politely, and we took leave of her. On the way back, Dr. Masani did not talk much. The rattling sound of the speeding train and the conjecture that I needed to contemplate over the offer that was least expected by both of us must have silenced him. It no longer worried me that I did not know anything about cinema and acting. As the train rocked me to a state of relaxation, I was actually feeling good and thankful that a job with a handsome remuneration was waiting for my acceptance. On reaching home, I told Ayub Sahab about the offer. He found it hard to believe that Devika Rani had offered me rupees 1250 per month. He said it must be the amount she would pay annually. He said he knew that Raj Kapoor was getting a monthly salary of rupees 170. I felt Ayub was right. How could she give me such a whooping amount every month? And if it was for a year, I felt it was not worth accepting as it would not ease Agaji's burden. It was of utmost urgency for me to earn enough to augment Agaji's income from the fruit trade. Apart from Ayub Sahab, nobody in the house knew about the episode. Noor Sahab, that is my eldest brother, was least concerned and lived in a world of his own. He was seen in the house only at meal times. I thought it would be decent on my part to tell Dr. Masani about my decision, so I went to his house at Churchgate and told him that rupees 1250 annually was rather meager for all the travelling I had to do every day to Malad by the electric train and for all the pains I had to take to initiate myself into a challenging profession. Dr. Masani was certain that the salary offered was on a monthly basis. He volunteered to ascertain the figure from Devika Rani and made a phone call to her, and from the nods and smiles he was giving as he held the receiver to his ear, I could understand that she was telling him something that pleased him immensely. When he put the receiver down, he told me she had made the offer of rupees 1250 per month and not annually because she thought I held great promise and she should make an offer that I would accept gladly. Next day, I met Dr. Masani at the Churchgate station after lunch. The year was 1942 and the day was a Friday. I left home quietly. Nobody knew where I was heading. The gates of Bombay Talkies somehow looked more inviting and welcoming that afternoon as the watchman opened them for our taxi to enter. In her office, Devika Rani was alone, seated at the desk, which was always clean and uncluttered. The conversation was brief because she knew I had come to accept the offer. She said the employment formalities and the paperwork would be done by one Mr. Iyer, her assistant. She was emphatic that I should join at the earliest and get into the stride of the job. She said it would be nice if I could come to the studio the next day and meet some of the people I would be working with. My hesitation to talk about money prevented me from reconfirming the salary, though the prospect of earning the four-digit figure, which was a big achievement those days, had drawn me to a profession I knew my father had little respect for. On more than one occasion, I had heard him tell Raj Kapoor's grandfather, Diwan Basheshwarnath Kapoor, jokingly that it was a pity his son and grandsons could not find anything other than Nautanki as their profession. Nautanki is a drama form from Uttar Pradesh. It also means acting. Tea arrived for us in a tray covered with a starched white cloth bordered with English lace. The tea cups were handed to us by a neatly dressed office boy whose good training had taught him to pour the brew and milk with a steady hand without spilling a drop anywhere. It was wonderful to see an Indian boy handle the service with the finesse that English butlers and valets thought they alone could manage. When I returned home late in the evening, I told Amma I had found myself a job that would get me a pay packet of rupees 1250 every month, which would take care of her kitchen expenses as well as the education of my younger brothers and sisters. There were a lot of miscellaneous expenses, and some money could be set aside for that too. She wanted to know what job it was that was so paying. I assured her it was a respectable job and I had got it because of my strong proficiency in the Urdu language. She seemed happy with that reply since it sounded like a job of some consequence if it required proficiency in Urdu, especially during the turbulent times we were living in when the Second World War was raging and our freedom struggle had gathered great momentum. The next day dawned like any other. I got dressed and left home quietly. I reached the studio on time at 9 a.m. Devika Rani welcomed me and took me personally to the floor where preparation for a shooting was going on. She led me up to a man who was very well dressed and looking distinguished. He looked familiar, and I recalled having seen the handsome countenance on posters and hoardings near Crawford Market. His dark hair was combed back, and he smiled through his eyes at me. Devika Rani introduced me, saying I had just joined as an actor. He held my hand in a warm handshake that marked the beginning of a friendship that was to last an entire lifetime between us. He was Ashok Kumar, who soon became Ashok Bhaiya to me. Ashok Kumar came out of the floor and called out to one of the boys to open his makeup rooms. As the boy ran to fetch the door keys, I recognized another young man walking towards us. That was Raj Kapoor, who was justly shocked to see me there. He was his wonderful jovial self as he gathered from me that I had joined the studio as an actor. Does your father know? He asked me mischievously. I did not reply because both Ashok Bhaiya and Devika Rani were standing by our side and they were pleasantly surprised to learn that Raj and I knew each other. Raj gave a short account of our football days at Khalsa College, which made Devika Rani observe. That is indeed nice. It is a game I wished I could play like the boys at school. Devika Rani left us to chat with one another and walked briskly back to her office. There was an informality in the way Ashok Kumar and Raj interacted, which I liked. It was not like an office where you address somebody senior as sir and spoke only when spoken to. Here, Raj was talking continuously, describing our escapades at Khalsa College, and I thought he would give away the secret that I had joined the studio without Agaji's knowledge. It was something I did not want the people in the studio to know just then because it would have created an impression of me doing things secretly. Fortunately, he did not bring up the subject and I was relieved. There was no doubt that Raj was happy to see me and welcome me into the profession. He knew how painfully shy I used to be in college, and he must have wondered how I would fit into a profession that was not for shy, reserved people. At the studio the next day, I was introduced to one Shah Nawaz Khan. He came across as a crude, rough man to me. He asked me if I was a Pathan, and when I replied in the affirmative, he bellowed and laughed as if I had told him something incredibly funny. He said he knew about my being a Pathan from the color of my cheeks and my aloofness. So, if you knew it, what was so funny that he had to laugh like a neighing horse? I wanted to ask him. He next asked me how many brothers I had. I told him I had five. He went into a fit again, and I was sure I was wasting time with a crazy man. He said, तुम अगर 6 भाई होते तो मेरा क्या बिगाड़ लेते. This can be roughly translated as, even if you are 6 brothers, what can you do to me? Now it was getting too much and too personal. So I just got up and went to see Devika Rani and told her how stupidly the man had spoken to me. She did not say anything. She simply patted me on the back and sent me home. After my departure, she must have given him a piece of her mind because the next day he was apologetic and said he was not meaning to offend me. Such jibes were common at Bombay talkies, he added. I wondered if he was telling me the truth because the people I had met, like Ashok Bhaiya and David Abraham, were ever so civilized and soft spoken. Thank you very much.